According to market research, it can cost companies 10 times more to win new customers over than it does to retain current customers. Now, if we apply that into the automotive world, and in particular sports car manufacturers, that's a little bit of a problem. Let's take Porsche as an example, because many years ago Porsche only really built two model lines, the Boxster and the 911. But Porsche soon realised that at some stage those customers would have to leave the brand, their lives would change and they'd have to buy something more practical. So what did Porsche do? Well, they built the Cayenne and then subsequently the Macan. They gave their customers a practical car so they could stay loyal to the Porsche brand, and therefore Porsche didn't have to spend more money winning in new customers, and dare I suggest even more money winning those old customers back when their lives changed yet again. Which is exactly the predicament that Alpine find themselves in. Because up until now, all they've really given us is the brilliant, yet slightly impractical A110 sports car. Well, now they've given us this, their new 5-door sports Fastback. But this one could be even more of a hard sell because the A390 is pure electric. Yet it's a car that Alpine say embodies everything that the brand stands for and still carries the DNA that makes the Alpine A110 such a brilliant car to drive. That sounds like quite a tall order for me. Welcome to this week's new car review. Welcome to the new Alpine A390. Please sit yourself down, make yourself comfortable in the house of cars. Now, obviously we've seen car manufacturers diversify into sort of like SUVs, crossovers, whatever you want to call it, and manufacturers that you might not normally associate with cars of that sort of genre. We've had Porsche, like I say, with the Cayenne and the Macan. We've also had Maserati with things such as the Grecale and the Levante. We've had Bentley with the Bentayga, Rolls-Royce with the Cullinan, and of course we've had Ferrari with its Purosangue. But the difference with those companies is they appeal to high net worth individuals in some respects. In other words, they're quite expensive cars, and those customers tend to be multiple owners of those brands. So in other words, if those cars don't sell quite as well, they're still got their core ranges that they sell. This is Alpine we're talking about, which up until recently only had one car, a small two-seater sports car, the A110. Now, I appreciate Alpine sit under the Renault Group umbrella, so they're not exactly poor, but they do still have quite a mountain to climb. They first gave us a slightly more practical car with their A290, the hot hatch that's based on the rather brilliant Renault 5 E-Tech. And this is their next one, the A390. But as I say, this is quite a hard sell. This isn't based on a Renault product. This is an Alpine, they tell us, and that it pains to point out that it retains all the core values that makes an A110 such a brilliant driver's car, and all the DNA that makes Alpine a brilliant sports car brand. It does it. However, before we start the main review, let's take a look at the main points of the new Alpine A390. So the new A390 is the second new car to appear in Alpine's 3-car dream garage, alongside the A290 electric hot hatch and the future all-electric A110 sports car replacement. It's a 5-door sports fastback, the company's first bespoke electric car that offers a more practical solution for existing Alpine customers and those who are new to the brand who need this larger style of car but want to experience the Alpine magic. It comes in two different models, the GT and the GTS, delivering either 400 horsepower or 470 horsepower respectively via 3 motors to all 4 wheels. It's fitted with an 89 kilowatt-hour battery for a range of up to 344 miles depending on model. And prices are expected to start in the UK from around £62,000 to just under £70,000 depending on model before options. Now, this is not an SUV. It is, according to Alpine, a 5-door sports fastback. But is that just a little bit of smoke and mirrors to sort of like distract us into buying yet another all-electric crossover that's hit the market? Or is there some truth in that? And actually what we have here is an all-electric 5-door practical car that drives like an A110 sports car. Well, to find out, I've jumped on a plane and come down to southern Spain to put it through a road test review to find out the answer for you. So the least you can do, if you're not already subscribed to the House of Cars channel, is subscribe to it. After all, I've gone to this trouble. And then obviously turn on your notifications so that you don't miss the next review when it's uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched it, if you enjoy it, and obviously I hope you do, give it a thumbs up, and as always, leave me your thoughts in the comment section. Right, let's find out what this is all about, shall we? Let's start with how the car looks, which is, I think, very distinctive. Now, you'll see more of the Alpine styling DNA, and I'm sorry for using that expression, but I do mean it when we go around the rest of the car, because there's an awful lot of reference to the A110 in this car, and I think it really, really does work. And going back to what I was saying earlier about Alpine calling this a 5-door sports fastback, I really see where they're coming from with that, but we'll get onto it in a little bit second. Now, when I was out in Paris just over a year ago, seeing the new Renault 4 launch, they showed us a concept car, Alpine showed us a concept car, the A390 Beta, which they said 85% of which would reach production, and we all thought, yeah, whatever, you know, the usual stuff. They pretty much have done it. They really have. This is an exceptional looking car, I think, and it retains a lot of that DNA, I'm going to say that so much in this review, across the front of the car, while still giving us a completely new look. So Alpine cars have got this 4 light signature across the front of them. You look at the A110, which is obviously very reminiscent of the original A110, with the sort of middle, sort of like rally lamps almost type of thing. Then with the A290, which is obviously based on the Renault 5, they did the same. You had the normal headlights, but then the square, like rally lamps right in the middle. It's the same with the 390. But there's along this almost light blade here, so you get the main bits here, and then of course these sort of like secondary bits in there. So there's the 4 lights across the front of this light bar. This is the DRLs. The main lights are obviously hidden down here. Like I say, a lot of manufacturers are doing this. But look at this here. This I absolutely love. They call these triangles cosmic dust, and these are part of the DRLs. Now, they can call it what they like. I think it just looks really distinctive. When you see the car at night, it looks fabulous with this down here. And triangles are Alpine's theme because it's to remind you of the Alps. So that's why they've got triangles on their cars, and there's a lot of these little references around it that you'll see. But yeah, so that's what you've got there, this cosmic dust. Then your main lights there. And obviously you've got cooling down at the bottom there. The body's sort of split into 2 in terms of colour. So you get the main body colour, then you get this gloss black around it. And that's going to help shrink the actual body into looking low and sleek as well, which is great for this style of car. It makes it feel a lot lower than it actually is. But it's not a tall car either. That's the other important thing to mention. You've obviously got the Alpine lettering across the front, which is, again, as you get on the A110. And then you get this blade spoiler here, which is fabulous. Now, of course, Jaguar did something similar on the I-Pace, and Polestar do something similar on the Polestar 3, where the airflow comes in here and then exits out here, so it can reduce the height of the bonnet to help the airflow while still keeping the front of the car high that you need for a sort of crossover style of car. So as you see, you've got airflow that goes up over the car, so aero efficiency is really good on it. And then as I say, you've got all the cooling here, and then you've got your radar for your radar sensor down there for the radar guided cruise control, a really neatly integrated front camera there, and as I see, your gloss black front splitter there. But as I say, they've managed to do 2 things in my book. They've managed to make it look like an Alpine, but they've also managed to make it not just look like a slightly high-riding A110. They've actually really managed to design a brand new car. And the other interesting thing is remember, this is not an Alpine version of a Renault, like the A290 is in some respects. Even the platform that it sits on is so comprehensively re-engineered, they almost considered calling it something different to the platform that it shares with some other Renault products. But as I say, it's not an Alpine version of a Scenic or, you know, or another car that Renault build. It is their own work, and you can really tell in the styling. Now, I've got to apologise a little bit because I've been I've been flying all around, mostly down into sort of like Spain and stuff, filming a lot of cars recently. And where they worked up some really nice sort of like shots with some lovely views, the sun's always in the wrong place. So I apologise. I'm shooting into the sun, which is a lovely view over there. If I showed you over there, there's a big wire fence down there. So this is why I'm trying to do it this way. So apologies on that. Right, what are we looking at? 4.6 metres long, 2.7 metre wheelbase, okay? So it is quite a big car, you know, in terms of its sort of like practicality. But you know what I was saying to you about it not being particularly high? It's 1.5 metres tall, okay? It's only a centimetre taller than an A290 hot hatch. That's what I mean. It's not really an SUV. It isn't at all. In fact, in some respects, if you didn't have these gloss black arches, and maybe you lowered it a little bit, it would just look like a sort of 5-door coupe style of car. That, I think, is a really important thing. Now, it sits on the Alpine medium platform, which is Renault Group's, you know, sort of like Ampere, their electrical architecture. But as I say, it's so comprehensively re-engineered, they were telling us last night, that they did think about calling it Alpine's own version of that, because I say they've changed quite a lot of what this car sits underneath. So please don't think of it as, I say, a rebodied Scenic. It's not that at all. When we get on to talk about the engineering of the drivetrain, boy, is this thing impressive. But first and foremost, with regards to that, weight distribution. 49% front, 51% rear. They've almost got the perfect balance, because what you really want is a 50-50 weight distribution. They've nearly got it with this car, and the way it drives, you can tell. The other interesting thing with it is bespoke tyres on the car, okay? So depending obviously on what tyre that you go, sorry, what model you go for, as I say, there'll be two models, the GT and the GTS. This is a GT. They're all sitting on bespoke Michelin rubber. And on this GT, we've got the Pilot Sport 4S tyres. There's also a cross-climate tyre available as well on it. And the GTS gets its own tyre as well. But they're actually branded A39 here for A390, so they are bespoke for this car. 20-inch alloy wheels are going to be on the GT, 21s on the GTS. And look at the sort of like the styling of it. This is what I talk about. So as I say, look at this bit here. That's the bit that's like the A110, isn't it? That's sort of like drooping roof, and then the little tricolore French flag along there. You know, this bit here where it meets the body shell, and then the Alpine whoosh that comes down there, and then just down there like that. That's so A110, that. And then sweeps up from here. And you see what I mean with the gloss black there and then the black roof? It really pinches that bodywork in to make it long and sleek. And I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Now, you've got the flush door handles on the front door, which obviously you've got to sort of pop out. And in the rear doors, you've got the hidden handle, which is integrated into the C-pillar, which you really can't see at all until you feel for it. So again, they've managed to disguise that really well and give it that really long, sleek, fastback look. So I do understand what they're talking about when they call it a fastback. And then of course you've got your Alpine logo there with the arrowhead always pointing forward. Successful, I think. I think this is a great looking car. There's loads of little nods on it as well. You've got the little integrated Alp there on the wheel arches, the gloss black wheel arches there, the little triangular bit there to remind you of the Alps, which is where Alpine got its name from. And as I say, lots of just little bits of DNA that you can just pick up on the styling, like the A110 rear part here and the swoosh line and the French flag. Absolutely brilliant, I think. I can't see a bad angle on this car. I genuinely can't. I think it looks great from the back as well. Now, when they showed us the concept car in France last year, and they said 85% of this is what you're looking at is production ready, we're going, don't be daft. Genuinely, it really does. The only thing they haven't done is that movable rear diffuser and spoiler section to help increase the airflow across the car. Obviously, they haven't done that. But they have given us this sort of almost double spoiler arrangement here, where you've got one wing along the back of the glass house, which is then painted black just to blend it in, and then a slight upsweep in the tailgate here as well. So you almost got that double spoiler arrangement, which I think looks really distinctive. Of course, you get your de rigueur light bar across, but in the middle you get your Alpine lettering lit up, which I really love. So the light bar doesn't go all the way across, it then just lights the lettering up in there, and I think that looks brilliant on the car. And again, you get your little sort of like cosmic dust fragments of light through here, and the little triangles embedded into these rear sections here. Now, these bits on the side here are quite important for airflow as well, so they help airflow around the car and take it around the back. And this rear diffuser section here, they say, is based on their Alpine Le Mans car that they race at Le Mans 24 Hour. So they've taken a lot of inspiration from that car and a lot of the aerodynamic work they've done on the race car. And there was a huge talk of that, talking about how closely they've worked with the race teams, because obviously they've got Formula One as well, you know, and helping them to help define the aero work on this car. Now, there's part of you thinks that's just a load of marketing stuff, but genuinely I don't think it is with Alpine. They seem like such a small-knit team of people that work on these cars. They're really proud of that fact. They want to show off their motorsport history and their heritage and lean on that motorsport engineering, and that's where that's come from. But again, you've also got the little triangles, the little cosmic dust sort of like embossed into that rear diffuser, and then a little sort of like triangle there as well, which you think, well, that's maybe like the rear fog light on an F1 car, but again, it's just the Alps signature, where Alpine comes from. Obviously your model designation across there, this is a GT model that I've got. GTS comes into the UK slightly later in 2026. The GT is the first one we're getting. We might be getting a Premier Edition, but I'll talk about that a bit later on. You get a rear camera, reverse camera bedded up into there. But yeah, as I say, I don't think there's a bad angle on it. I really don't. Every time I've been looking at this car, I just think it looks an absolutely stunning car. And I think it's a really difficult thing for a manufacturer to do that's renowned for sports cars, to then build a completely different genre of car, yet still embody sort of like the look of their other cars in it. Not many can do it. Porsche didn't with the Cayenne in some respects, and the Macan. I mean, it's taken them a long time to make sure that they're now recognisably Porsche. But I think immediately you see this car, you recognise it as an Alpine. What do you think? Have you got an Alpine? Have you an A110 driver and you're thinking this is an absolute travesty and it's a disgrace to the brand? Or are you thinking this is just what I've been waiting for and I really love it? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know them in the comment section down below. Now obviously the whole idea behind this car was to give us a practical Alpine. Have they done that? Yes, without doubt. 532 litres of boot space there, and if you fold down the standard 60-40 split rear seat, it'll take total capacity up to 1,643 litres. So I would suggest that's more than ample enough for most people's needs. You don't get a sort of like a flat load entry into the car, but that's fine. There's a little bit of a drop, but you know, you sort of forgive it for having the slightly bigger boot. There's just some cable storage underneath there, that's it. But again, it keeps them nice and neat and tidied out the way. There's no front boot on the car, no frunk or fruit or whatever you want to call it, because of the mechanical layout of it, which obviously we'll talk about a wee bit later. But I would suggest you're probably going to not need much more than that. I mean, obviously there's things such as, you know, the hooks for putting luggage nets in and that. There's none of the real little practicalities of hooks at the side and things like that. But in terms of space, overall space, I suggest that's more than enough for most people's needs. And it's certainly a lot more practical than an A110. Now remember what I said, it's a 5-door sports fastback. It's not an SUV, so we can't expect it to have SUV type of rear seat space. But in fairness, it is very good indeed. Obviously the sloping roofline coming down there, you've got to watch your head on that type of thing, so there's a little bit of, you know, you've got to watch yourself as you get in and out of the car there in terms of that. There's no panoramic roof on the car, so it's a solid roof that's on the car. And you know, it does sort of like come right back behind your head there and start to slope down, so taller passengers might struggle a bit. I'm 5'8", that's my driving position. I've got more than enough space behind myself, so I've got lots of knee room there. I can get my feet underneath the seats if I really want to, and I've got plenty of headroom as well, so there's plenty more than enough space there as well. So that's excellent news. It is shaped for 4, you know what I mean, the 2 front seats, 2 rear seats, although you could fit a smaller person sort of like in the middle here, because there obviously is a belt, but it's not really shaped for them, so it would be a smaller child. And there's no centre armrest. That's maybe the only other downside with it, you know, so there's no through load either. There's no ski hatch or stuff like that. Obviously you get things such as the mat pockets in the backs of the seats there. There's connectivity with 2 USB-C ports there. There's a vent there as well to help airflow through the back, and a completely flat floor, because remember, it's built on the Ampere medium platform, so as I say, it's a bespoke electrical architecture, so there's no transmission. It doesn't share anything with a combustion engine car. We will talk more about materials as we jump into the front of the car. I'll go through that there, but I have to say, you know, in terms of the fit and finish in the back of the car, it's very, very good. Right, let's jump up front, because in fairness, it's not all good news. Well, I say not all good news. I'm maybe being a little bit unfair on Alpine in some respects. The only thing that really just slightly disappointed me when I first saw the car earlier in the year was this area here, which is clearly lifted from Renault, you know, and I thought they maybe would be a little bit more bespoke when it came to the dashboard, especially at the market position they're going into, and especially at the price point. That being said, the build quality is very good and it does work really well, okay? So it uses Renault's OpenR-Link system with inbuilt Google. So you get Google Maps as your navigation system. Obviously things such as Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is exactly what you'd expect, and that's what you get. But you get things like Google Assistant in it as well. And whilst a lot of it's controlled via the screen, there is a lot of physical buttons around the car as well. And as you can see, a lot of physical buttons on the steering wheel, the 3-spoke Formula 1 inspired steering wheel, you know, they tell us about, which you get on the A290. Now I'll go through these buttons in a second here, but just quickly going over here. So you can go through various different things here, such as your media control, you know, obviously your telephone. You go into here and there's also like your apps and widgets, and obviously you can download more apps for it, and of course you can put them in here. So of course you get Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, as I say. You can go into the Google Play Store and download a few more, so such as Amazon Music. You got Waze in here as well. Somebody's put Waze in this one. You know, you can put other things, I think, you know, such as Spotify and that type of thing in here. So you've got all of those to go in there and do as well. And then you've got car settings here. Now this is where Alpine start to get more bespoke, because you've got things such as the Alpine telemetrics in here. Now this is quite interesting, quite geeky if you're into sort of like sports car stuff. And a lot of this is come from the gaming industry. This is where they've teamed up a lot of people in the gaming industry. So you've got live data telemetrics here, not just about your energy used and stuff like that, but you know, there's also like track modes as well, so you can look at various different things such as tire pressures. You can look at the temperature of the motors. You can show torque flow as well, where the motors are showing the torque flow. There's a lap timer and things like that, and that can be done. You can go one stage further with your drive modes, which say we'll go on to talk about, because there's a track mode in there. There's one with agility, you know, so you've got G meter and sort of like things like that, you know, steering angle, that type of thing. So if you're really into all of that, you've got that there. And Alpine said that there's no reason why you shouldn't with this car because of the way that it drives. So that's all bespoke Alpine stuff, you know, so you can go in there and look at all of that. There's also a brilliant audio system, and I'll get the name of it wrong, Devialet, it's a French, you know, 13 speakers, I think they said it's got round it. Did I write, is it written down somewhere? I don't know. Let me just have a wee look. 13 speakers, I was right. Hey, look at that, I was listening. A high fidelity audio system with 13 speakers, with various different sound settings, and a really immersive sound quality that comes into the car. And I have to say, it's very, very good listening to it on the way up here this morning. Brilliant. So that is good, but as I say, I just like, you know, things like the plastic air vents and things like that. My Renault 4 has them. You know what I mean? My Renault 4 E-Tech has those. I just thought it might have been a bit different, but there we go. Never mind. It all works, and it's very, very good. You get climate control along the base of the screen there, but you've actually got the physical buttons to alter and adjust it as well. So you get your temperature control on these rocker switches here, fan speed, maximum defrost, heated rear screen, automatic climate, air resuck, air comment, and then to adjust your thing there. So it's not actually the touch screen for doing that, apart from things such as your heated seats and heated steering wheel. To actually control the climate is done through physical buttons, and they've got a really nice clicky action to them. They feel very positive, very well built. And then you get hazards and locking and unlocking there. One thing I am pleased that Alpine have not copied Renault in is the transmission stock up here. It comes from the A110, so you've got the buttons here. Thank you, Alpine. I really don't like that Renault transmission stock, even on my car. So you get drive, neutral and park and reverse on the 3 buttons, and they're arranged in a sort of like, again, that triangle layout. And that's come from the A110 as well, and they do that in the A290. So although the Renault 5 gets the transmission stock, the Alpine A290 gets these buttons. The downside in the Renault 5 is it loses a cup holder. You don't in the A390, but it just has the one. Bit odd. You also get a wireless charging pad in there, and a slot for your key to go in there, and then you've got a load of storage underneath the console here. Plus you've got this really nice flip up, this double aspect armrest here with lots of storage there, and big door bins, and of course a glove box. The driver's display is a 12.3 inch display, and again, it's bespoke Alpine in terms of the graphics and things. So the graphics are a little bit better, and you can configure depending obviously on what you want to see. But again, you get the sort of like the Alps sort of like motifs throughout, which just gives a bit more visual interest. But I really like how you can configure this. So depending obviously on what you want, you can have traditional dials as well. What did I get to it, he says? Come on. See, there's a lot to go with bespoke here. There's a power meter. There we go. There's the power meter there. So it's like almost like a rev counter, but it's percentage of power. And then the digital speed readout there. And I really like that. You know, so again, if you prefer dials, you can have that. Or what you can also do is you can have it like I quite like it. So you've got your media there, and then you get your maps right in the center there, but you've still got the big speed readout there. A lot of the Chinese brands that I've been reviewing of late, or some brands, I always feel that the speed is becoming secondary to other information, and I don't think it should be. It's nice, big and bold, in the A390, like it is in the A290 in fairness as well, so I do like that. But yeah, you can configure that how you see it. If you want to see your ADAS systems, if you want trip computer up there, or you can have it with the speed readout bang in the centre, and that's it, so I like that. Right, I want to talk about the steering wheel, because I say this is the Formula 1 inspired steering wheel, they say. It's quite interesting in some respects, because what you've got, rather than paddles behind the steering wheel to adjust the brake regeneration, you've actually got a little dial switch here like you would have on a Formula 1 car. So there are 5 settings of recharge from memory, okay? So they're either completely off, one setting. You've then got 3 other settings, so low, medium and high regeneration, so that takes you up to 4, and then the 5th one is one pedal driving. So there's a lot to adjust there depending, but that's nice that it gives you that adjustability. I'm not sure whether I would have preferred paddles, in fairness, which are a bit easier to use whilst you're actually driving, but at least you do have that ability to adjust it, and as I say, there's a lot of adjustment that you've got there. Then you've got your drive mode button here, or Perso as it is in Renault, it's drive mode on the Alpine. So you've got normal, sport, Perso and track. Okay, and save as well, so that's like economy, you know. So then you've got your normal one, as I say, come on, sport, and then when you go into the sport mode you get a little bit of that generated noise, which is not a fake engine noise, it's just a digital noise, and it's quite nice, I quite like that. Then you've got a Perso mode, so you can set the car up how you like it and go into that's your individual mode. And then there's a track mode, which also slackens off things like dynamic stability control, and then turns off various bits and pieces, you know, obviously if you're out on track. And also as well, we'll talk about how the actual sort of like setup mechanically will work in that sense a little bit later on. And then, as I say, there's the last one is save, which is like economy. So that's what that does. Then you've got this red OV button here. So this is an overtake button. It's a bit like, I used to have my Mini John Cooper works with the boost button. It's the same idea, and they get it in the A290. So when you press this, what it gives you is 10 seconds of absolute maximum power to overtake something, obviously on a twisty road. You use it once, it then takes 30 seconds to regenerate itself before you can use it again. However, if you wait 15 seconds, you would then get 5 seconds of extra boost. Okay, but that's what that is there. It's a bit gimmicky, but again, it's quite nice to have it on a sports thing. But the bit that doesn't let me down in here is the quality of the materials. It is absolutely, as I say, apart from that bit there, you know, where you've got the plastic shroud that's just similar to the Renault, the rest of it's all bespoke Alpine and looks it. So you've got the carbon inlay and the dashboard there above the aluminium, the face vents that are in there, the hand stitch, well, it's hand stitch, but you know, stitched leather across the dashboard and then into the doors. The seats themselves, you know, you get either Napa leather with Alcantara or full Napa leather, depending on the model you go for. It's not, you know, leather-like material, it's Napa leather. It's real Alcantara. And again, they're at pains to point out that they really, really wanted to make it feel special inside. And to most people they have done, I just wish that was just that wee bit differently styled. They maybe could have styled it slightly differently, you know, within a cowling and put some aluminium bits there or carbon bits on the vents. It's just that because I drive a Renault 4, I get in and go, oh, it's just like my Renault 4 in here. That's the only sort of thing about it. You do get the column stock for the media control, which is here, which I really like and I got on with really well. And as I say, I'm pleased to get rid of the transmission lever of the Renaults have. And obviously you get normal sort of like column stocks behind here. The seats are phenomenally comfortable. We've done some big miles in this car, motorway, twisty mountain roads through the cities. And we've done some big drives in the car. And there hasn't been a bit where I've not felt that the seat is supportive and comfortable for a long drive. There's just enough, you know, there's a lot of cushioning at the front of the seat to support the underneath the leg as well, so it really supports you in there. You get some lovely aluminium pedals with a nice big aluminium footrest in the footwell there as well. So as I say, on the whole, it's absolutely fine. I was maybe being a little bit unfair to them when I first started, but as I say, I'd just like to maybe see something a little bit more bespoke to Alpine on this actual part of the dashboard here, like it has done on the rest. But as far as the rest of it is concerned, it's absolutely fantastic in here, it really is. Lovely materials, really nice design, well equipped and very comfortable. Just what you want in a sports fastback. Now the car comes with just one battery size, an 89 kilowatt hour unit, which will give anywhere between 323 and 344 miles, depending on model according to WLTP tests. Your charging speeds are 190 kilowatts, meaning a 15 to 80% charge at that maximum charge speed should take around about 25 minutes. But even a 10 to 80% charge will be under the 30 minutes, which I think is excellent. You get onboard 11 kilowatt charging capability as standard, and there will be the option of a further 22 kilowatt charger available on the car as well. But a heat pump and vehicle to load are fitted as standard on the vehicle, so you're able to charge external devices from the A390. The other great thing with it as well, using the Google navigation system now, is it also takes into account various elements of the car to optimize your route for charging. In other words, it will look at the state of charge of the car that it's currently at, ambient temperature, the way you're driving, and it will plot a route out, optimizing those charging stops to make sure that your journey's done as efficiently as possible, which is a great thing for a GT style fastback car. Now I'm going to take the car out on the road now and show you what it's like to actually drive, but I just wanted to discuss some of the mechanical setup with the car before we go and do that. Now, as I say, there's going to be two models of the vehicle. The GT, which this car has, which is 400 horsepower and 650 newton meters of torque for a 0 to 60 time of 4.8 seconds. Or there's going to be a more powerful GTS, which is 470 horsepower and 808 newton meters of torque. And that will reduce the 0 to 62 miles an hour time down to just 3.9 seconds. But it's not how fast this car is that's important about it to me. It's how fast it goes down a road, especially a twisty road, which is what we've got out here in the mountainous regions of Spain. And that's what impresses me about this car. And it's all down to a thing called active torque vectoring. Let me explain. The Alpine A390 has 3 motors on it. You have one in the front axle, but 2 on the rear axle. And why it's set up like this is so that it can vary the torque that it delivers to the wheels, and it will make it corner better. It's nothing really to do with the actual traction, it's more to do with the handling of the car. Let me explain. So if we imagine the car is going into a right-hand bend, which is what we've got it set up here for, what's going to happen all in split second, the front motor is going to come back on its power a little bit so that it's not trying to deploy a huge amount of power through wheels that are trying to steer. In other words, it's giving more grip, especially with these Michelin tyres as well, to the front end, so it's doing more steering. Then we move to the back axle, and what's happening here is this. The inside wheel in the corner, which is on that side here, is powering back, whereas on this side, the motor on this side is actually increasing the power. So what that is doing then, it's tightening the line. So in other words, it's tucking that wheel further into the bend. As it powers back, the front end's going to tuck more into the corner, and this wheel's got more power going to it, which is then going to push it round the corner like that. Now there's other manufacturers that do this, but what they tend to use is the brakes of the car. So that inside rear wheel, the brakes will start to be applied, and that will, but it has the feeling then it's dragging the wheel at that point, where that one's then trying to pivot round it as it's being dragged, and it doesn't feel quite as natural. By using the power of the motors, what Alpine are able to do is split the torque that's going across that back axle. And that makes sure that, say, that inside rear wheel is just tightening up a little bit, slowing itself down, bringing the front of the car more into the corner, which has obviously got less power being applied here and more grip, whilst then applying more power to this outside rear wheel, which is then pulling it round the corner. Then as you're coming out of the corner, it changes again. There's more power then applied to the front axle, and then there's a more even split of torque and power to the rear axle, so that you get that nice linear acceleration out of the bend. All of this happens within hundredths of a second, at the blink of an eye, and it might seem like a silly thing to talk about, but it doesn't have to make a big difference when you get out on the road, and that is what impresses about the way that this car drives. So, without further ado, let's go for a drive. Right, let me start by telling you what the new Alpine A390 isn't. It's not just a fast Renault. So it's not like somebody's taken Alpine have taken a Renault Scenic and turned the wick up to 11. Completely different car. Nor is it an A110 that's grown in size and with an electric motor stuck in it, because that would be silly. I mean, obviously we're going to get an electric A110, but that's another car for another day. And the interesting other thing is, nor is it something like a Hyundai Ioniq 5N. That's a much more visceral type of experience of car. What the A390 is and what Alpine have managed to do with it is, I believe, something quite special and almost unique in the marketplace. Now, they've never uttered the words crossover or SUV in any of the presentation or any of the material that they've given us, and that's true, and I've really started to understand that, and it's taken a couple of days with the car, driving it over a variety of different routes in a variety of different places to really get under the skin of it and to really understand what this car is. And their description of it being a sports fastback is, I believe, probably the most accurate description you can make with this car. What they've done with it is something quite special. Yes, it's fast, okay, there's no denying that. Anything with 400 horsepower that this GT has is going to be quick. It will do 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds. The GTS is quicker, it's got 470 horsepower and it can do it in 3.9. Great. It's not about how fast the car goes, it's about how the car actually goes down the road that's impressing me. That's the difference with it. This car could do 1,000,000 miles an hour, it could do 0 to 60 in a blink of an eye, and it wouldn't make any difference. It's what they've engineered into the chassis, to me, that makes this car stand apart from everything else in its class. The first thing that really strikes you about it, however, is the steering. It's quite light, and it's almost a little bit disconcerting. It's not light as in vague light, it's light as in it's quick to respond, and it's almost fingertip light. There's so much communication from the helm, it's almost a bit unnerving at first because you actually almost oversteer the car as you go into a corner. That's why you've got to take a bit of time and get used to it. But because of that torque vectoring, because a lot of the power is then shuffled to the back wheels and to the back motors as well, there's less power at the front corrupting the steering. It doesn't feel like there's a motor on the front axle to me. The bite from the front end is so good, it just feels that all the wheels at the front are doing is exactly that. They're giving you the direction of travel. That's it. There's no traction at the front. There is, but it just doesn't feel like it. And that's the first thing that I think is really clever with this car. The second thing that's almost, in fact, you won't believe it until you're in the car, is the compliancy. How they've made this car ride the way they have on, you know, a decent set of wheels. This car's on the biggest 21-inch wheels, and yet going over some of the sort of like ridges in the road that we've experienced out here in Spain through some of the villages, and they're not the best roads in the world, you know, in some sort of like, you know, speed bumps and things like that, you genuinely would think you're in some wafty big Citroen, but you still don't lack body control. That's it. So when you're stringing a set of bends together in a car that weighs over 2 tons, remember, you've got this light feeling sporty car. It's only when you turn around and you realise, actually, there's a big car behind me, that you realise that you're not in a sports car. And I don't know how they've done it. I genuinely don't, but it is really impressive. Now, obviously there's various different modes that you can put the car into, and you do this via this drive mode button on the steering wheel. So even when you're in normal mode, the car still feels quite special. But then you progress through it and you go into something like sport, where everything tightens up and a few things slacken off as well, so you get slightly less electronic stability control and things like that. And then all of a sudden, again, it's just another facet to the car, where the car just seems that it's, all right, you want to step up a gear, that's fine, let's do that. And it's almost like no matter what you throw at it, it will just deal with it. And as I say, you expect that in a sports car wearing the Alpine badge. You certainly don't expect it in what is essentially a 5-door family car. But as I say, it's not like the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. That's a very, very different style of car. This flows better. The Hyundai's almost a little bit, I want to say manic. I don't mean it's manic as in it's uncontrollable. I just mean it's like you really attack a road with the Ioniq 5N. This flows. This is the difference with this car. It flows down the road, and it just feels, and it's a corny thing to say, but it just feels like it's just a bit more harmonious. The chassis, the steering, the brakes, it's all working together. It's all making you feel quite heroic. The accelerations there, as I say, there's no doubting its performance. That's not what's the most important thing about the car. It's how, as I say, it travels down the road and how it makes you feel as you're going down the road, you know, bend to bend, corner to corner. That's the difference with it. And then you get it onto the motorway like we're now on here, and it just all settles down, and it's this big, comfortable, fast, grand touring car. It really is a jack of all trades, master of them all as well. Now, you've got different levels of brake regen as well down here, so it depends obviously on what you want. I personally prefer it without any brake regen on. I prefer braking a car myself. So when you take it off completely where the car is coasting, where it's obviously at its most efficient, the feel that you get from the brake pedal is one of something that's been set up by somebody that knows how to set up a set of brakes. There's a lovely hydraulic movement to the pedal. It's another electric sort of like performance car that we're seeing that has the feel of a combustion engine car, and the way the weight of all its controls, the throttle pedal, the brake. It's not just the throttle's not just an electric switch where all of a sudden it's just 0 to 60 in the blink of an eye. It feels like you're doing it, you're driving it, you're controlling this, you're making it happen. It's not the car that's doing it, it's you that's doing it, you're driving it. It's the same with the brakes. There's this lovely feel to the pedal where you go onto the brake pedal and you just feel them bite and just grip really nicely. But if you want brake regen, you can just add it by turning this little RCH toggle on the steering wheel, and you can go all the way to one pedal driving if that's your bag. So you've got the adaptability with the car to tune it how you want it. You don't have to just have it how it's been set up from factory. If there was a fault, and I don't think it is a fault, it's maybe not as quiet, you know, on the road. There's a little bit more road noise on the motorway at higher speeds than you would maybe get from some cars. But again, the whole point of it is to make you feel like you're in a performance car. It's not a luxury car, and that's the difference. So it's not like other, you know, sort of like electric vehicles where there's complete silence in here. There's elements coming into the car that let you know what's happening. And the whole thing has just been engineered in such a way that I genuinely can't see a car on the marketplace that's got the breadth of talent that this one has. As I say, the Ioniq 5N is a great car. It's one of those cars that you can really take with the scruff of the neck and really throw it down your favourite road and really get a huge amount of pleasure out of doing that. And then you've got something like a Kia EV6 GT, which is brilliant at being a grand touring car. And then you've got something like a Porsche Macan, which is quite a, you know, it is an SUV with performance. The Alpine's completely different to all of that. It has the performance, it has the ability to be a grand tourer, it has the ability to be taken by the scruff of the neck and attack a brilliant B road with it. And it's got all of that combined into a car with the Alpine badge. And I just don't know how they've done it, but I'm glad they have. If you're talking about competition and you're looking at the Macan, which I really like, I think Porsche have done a brilliant job with that Macan. I think the Alpine's better. I really genuinely do. I think they've taken something, a type of car that, you know, that's so far removed from what Alpine has done in the past. They've taken it and they've said, how can we turn this into a true Alpine? And that's what they've done. And they've made it feel really, really special. And for me, that's the key with this car. Every time you drive it, it feels special. It takes a bit of understanding, it takes a little bit of getting used to it, a little bit of delving under the skin of it and just understanding what it actually is, what the type of car that it is. But performance, handling, ride comfort, grand touring capability with practicality, all rolled up into a car that feels as special as this. I think it's brilliant. I think it's probably the best car in its class and one of the best electric cars that I've driven. It's that good. Now, official UK pricing has yet to be set. Now, currently there are plans for 2 models in the UK. A GT, which you can order from January 2026, and a GTS, which will come on stream later in the year. But Alpine UK are also considering a Premier Edition. They seem to think that UK customers quite like these, and they've done them before, obviously in the A110 and the A290. So it'll be based on the GT, and it'll take sort of like some elements maybe from the GTS and some options that were going to be available on the car and fit them as standard for a slightly higher price. Pricing indications are as follows. They reckon that the car is probably going to come in at somewhere around about a £62,000 starting price and end up just below the £70,000 for the top of the range model before any options are fitted. But as I say, those UK prices have still yet to be confirmed at time of filming. Now, what you're going to see is competition for the A390. Because remember, they don't call it a crossover or SUV, it's a sports fastback. Well, I think the main competitor that they've had in their sights with this car is without doubt the Porsche Macan. Just like they did with the A110 going up against Cayman, I obviously think they look at Porsche and go, that's the market space that we want to aim the car at. So the Macan for me is number one in this car's sights when it comes to competition. But it doesn't stop there, because there are quite a few performance orientated cars of a similar design. We won't class it as a genre, of a similar design that you could consider at this price point. And they're going to be cars such as the Polestar 4, another car that sort of has that, you know, not an SUV, not a crossover, more of a sort of Grand Tourer, performance Grand Tourer sort of vibe about it. So I think Polestar 4 is a car you would consider as a rival for this. I also think you'd maybe consider such things as the top of the line Cupra Taviscan, you know, with its VZ3 model. I think that's a car you might also consider. So, you know, certainly price wise, you know, Cupra are punching quite high now, you know, and they're a performance brand from, well, Spain. So they want to be seen as a real standalone performance brand, just like Alpine are. So I think that's a car you might also consider as a rival for it. You're also maybe going to look at cars such as, I don't know, maybe I think the Hyundai Ioniq 5N and the Kia EV6 GT, you know, from a price point of view, from a power point of view, from more of a sort of like a driver-orientated electric car point of view, I think they're two cars I think you would see as natural rivals for it, albeit they are slightly different to drive than the Alpine is. Maybe you might also see competition coming from the likes of Maserati with its Grecale Folgore. Bit more of an SUV, a performance SUV, and a bit higher in price, but again a sort of more premium brand that I think Alpine would be, well, quite pleased to be considered against as well. So certainly the Maserati could be a car that you'd also consider. And maybe you might also consider cars such as the BMW iX2 and its all-wheel drive xDrive 30 guys as well, though slightly less performance orientated and much more towards more practical family type of motoring than iX2, but certainly nonetheless a car that you might see as a competitor for the Alpine. These are rose-tinted glasses, and I think if we're being honest, as petrol heads, we're all a little bit guilty of looking through them at times and reminiscing about the good old days. But things have moved on, times have changed, and as another wearer of large spectacles, Elton John, once sang, those good old days ain't so good no more. The problem is Alpine needed to come up with something new. They needed to change their way of thinking if they were to keep those customers who have had A110s but now need something more practical, and dare I suggest win over some new customers who maybe an A110 or an A290 just simply wasn't going to be practical enough for. And that's exactly what they've delivered with the A390. If you were expecting this to drive like an electric A110, dare I suggest you were a little bit foolish. That's going to be the job of the new A110 that's going to come out and will be all electric. That's the sports car. What this car had to do was win over some new fans and keep hold of those fans who just needed something a little bit more practical in their life. And that's what they've done. I was genuinely concerned whether or not, because I love the A110 so much and the A290, whether they could really do it with such a style of car. And it's taken a couple of days and it's taken driving over a variety of roads to really get under the skin of this car and realise that they have. What they've managed to do is give us that practical 5-door sports fastback, because I do believe that's what this is. It's not an SUV. And embody it with everything that Alpine stands for. This thing is absolutely reeking with Alpine DNA. It's just a slightly different DNA to what the A110's got, but it's still the same DNA at its core. And that is what I love about this car. If you thought Porsche had the monopoly when it came to building fast, fun, practical electric SUVs, be prepared for this, because this, in my book, is not only better, but better by some margin. This is brilliant. Thank you for watching another road test review on House of Cars. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the House of Cars channel, and then when you've done that, make sure you've turned on your notifications so that you don't miss the next road test review when it's uploaded and it's gone live. Have you enjoyed this review? If you have, give it a little thumbs up for me, and of course, Leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think I've lost my marbles? Would you have one of these over a Porsche? Because I would, and I'm a massive Porsche fan. This is brilliant. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now remember, I'm also across on social media, so if you're a fan of the gram, you'll find me over on Instagram, and it's at House of Cars 1973. And remember, whether or not it is a new car or an old car, a slow car or a fast car, a small car or a large car, you'll find them all here in the House of Cars. Thanks again for watching. Thank you for your continued support. I'll see you again soon. As soon as I've changed my glasses, because I can't see a thing through these things.